Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Palmer. A couple things I thought was interesting in the questions that were already asked, and there's been several things that have been very unclear to me. One comment I will make is that several of the requests that I made or challenges that I made over the years, you're now talking about. So when former representative brought up the deer management issue, which I really wasn't going to bring up, I want to stick to the subject here today. I thought it was interesting that you're now talking about burning and habitat. And quite frankly, that would have been your mission all along. Mm-hmm. So I actually like to give you kudos for that, the fact that it's taken this long. Maybe it's because you're looking for money. I mean, it's just possible. But however, I think for me, and by the way, that's an interesting graph there. I do have several packets in my office that are pretty thick. I did not bring, but I don't believe we're anywhere near Texas with license sales. And I think we might be third, as a matter of fact. So that would be interesting to me. It would also be interesting to me to see how we get our Pittman-Robertson funds, how much we get, and where we spend them, which more or less brings me into my questions as a business person who has always had to look at, just like we do as legislators, revenue in, appropriations out. To me, what would be helpful is not a graph that just says this is what it is, but information that says this is where we get our money and this is how we spend it. Mm-hmm. And I think, like even in some of the annual publications that were put out, like when you show land acquisitions, of like $150,000, I don't see how that's possible when you're buying thousands of acres of land. You're actually mandated to not spend any more than $400 an acre, and you evidently are. So to me, it would be useful if we could see how you're doing that, where the monies are actually going to, and if you are actually doing like some public agencies where they move monies from accounts to accounts. For instance, if you have a general fund and you move funds from there or never make it there and you put it in some sort of escrow account, how do we even know what that amount is and how you're spending it? And so on the Marcellus Shale type questioning, I do have some things that have been bothering me about responsibility, transparency, and what have you. But you know, actually, right before I came to Harrisburg, a Legislative Budget and Finance Committee 2010 resource audit was done. And when the professor from Penn State analyzed the worth of the sportsman's land, he put a value just at the 20% royalty rate and the bonuses and some of the, which would be signing bonuses and some of the other royalties that would follow. I mean, this is staggering figures. When we have out of just 5 contracts, a loss of $193 million. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but when I see some of the monies there that are used on a graph on what's the extra expenditures to the Game Commission, and just on 5 leases, we lost $193 million. I can't make a reasonable or educated decision on revenues and expenditures when, by the way, here's just the 5 alone from 2012 to 2013. There's the chart. Shows a total at just 20% royalties. Now, I know people who have gotten 40, 55% royalties. And we're talking about in this man's words, $1 billion of revenue loss. Now, I wonder where that would look like on that chart. And for me to make those decisions and to have that information in front of me as to how I would do that and how I would justify anything, business to me has to be transparent when it's the public's. So if you're buying dogs and if you're buying automatic weapons or if you're buying land for more than $400, to me, I'd like to know that. I'd like to see that. As the other representative said, that it would be good to see the revenues. I actually have the licensing chart. I didn't bring that with me. So I think to make really reasonable, sincere judgments on this, it would be helpful for all of us to have that.
Yes, and I'm not familiar with the report you're referencing, but we'll certainly look at it and try to get you a response to that. I'm just not familiar with that particular report. In regards to the $400 an acre, an explanation of that, a brief explanation, is that in a lot of the land acquisitions that we've done, and right now we're at the point where land acquisitions are really stalled out. We simply can't do it. Unless it's something that's been in the pipeline for many, many years, we've had to walk away from a number of potential land acquisitions because we don't have the funding. But the way a lot of those lands are acquired is with the help of various conservancies. The Nature Conservancy, Western Pennsylvania Conservancy, a number of the conservancies will actually acquire the properties and then they will transfer them to us, and our cost share of that is the $400 an acre. Just for a brief explanation for the committee.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.